Hello and greetings to everyone. Today, my groupmates and I are going to present a survey on students' readiness towards distance learning on the subject Technology and Innovation in Education. First of all, I would like to introduce our group members. The first one is Nadia, second one is Jana, Verlin Debi, me myself, Ain Suraya, and Ainur. So, without further ado, let's begin our presentation.
Let's start with abstract. Distance learning also refers to e-learning, which is a form of attending lectures or classes without being physically present in the classroom with the help of modern technology. In this study, we will be disclosing the findings of our survey on students' readiness towards distance learning, focusing on the students' stance on distance learning and how effective it has been.
Let's move on to the introduction. The first one is physical learning has shifted to distance learning, which requires the use of gadgets as the primary medium to instill the continuity of the learning process. As we're now living in the era that full of technology, there is no doubt that we are able to see the use of gadgets everywhere we go because the gadget that we use are the medium to connect with other people, and also it is one of the medium of for learning process. The second one is it promotes a flexible learning option for students to organize their schedule, and at the same time the quality of learning can be still preserved.
Point number three, due to the growth of quality in education, accessibility of learning materials can also be collected from the internet via digital gadgets. So basically, students are given the access to a variety of sources from the internet at the same time allows them to widen the horizon of their perspective in certain field of study. So that readiness among students is required to guide them in developing the skills needed in this remote learning environment. Hence, the evaluation of students' readiness should be given the proper attention to make sure that the implementation of distance learning is going to be success at the end. So therefore, a study will be made to discuss on students' readiness towards distance learning. Okay, to conduct the survey, we used the Google Form platform to collect the data needed from the respondents. And from that survey, we collected 10 data, which consist of their opinion on the idea of distance learning, time spent and the device used during the implementation of distance learning, the effectiveness and the enjoyment in distance learning, the institution that helped in offering resources and stress level from distance learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, the enjoyment and teachers' help during remote learning, and lastly, the respondent preference towards remote learning nowadays. So I'll pass the next presentation to my friend.
Moving on to the findings and discussion of this research, the first one is on the students' overall feeling about distance learning. It is found that only 7% of the respondents are having an excellent time during distance learning. A total of 29.6% feel that distance learning had been a good experience for them, and the majority of the respondents, 50.4%, harbor a natural feelings towards their experience with distance learning. However, 9.6% had reported a below average feeling and 3.5% had described their overall feelings toward distance learning as poor. Next is on the students' access to a device for learning online. The findings on students' access to a device for learning online had shown that 79.1% of them do have access to a digital device, meanwhile 20.9% have access to gadgets that are not functioning well. Thirdly is the device used for online learning. In general, 85.2% of the respondents are using laptops to participate in distance learning. Besides, the usage of smartphones as a mechanism to actively engage in online learning is practiced by only 7% of the respondents. Furthermore, the use of desktop and tablets to participate in distance learning had been below 6% respectively. Next is the average time spent each day on online learning. About 13.9% of the respondents spent 1 to 3 hours on online learning, which is the least amount of time. Next, the majority of the students spend 3 to 5 hours of their day on distance learning. Meanwhile, 33.9% of the respondents devote 7 to 10 hours of their time to participate in online learning. Surprisingly, 2.6% of the respondents spend more than 10 hours being committed to remote learning. Next, we have the effectiveness of online learning. The findings on students' perceptions of the effectiveness of online learning on themselves show that 64.3% of the respondents believe that it has been moderately effective. About less than 12% of the respondents had a positive attitude toward online learning, and 23.5% of the respondents felt remote learning had been slightly effective for them. However, less than 2% of the respondents feel that online learning is not effective at all.
Next, I will continue present on finding and discussion for question number 6 until 10 based on the survey. Point number 6. Institutions help in offering resources to learn from home. Diagram 6 demonstrates the tools that institutions like schools and universities provide to assist students in learning from home while enrolled in online classes. According to the pie chart, 25 students, or around 21.7% of respondents, think it to be very helpful. The majority of students, 47.8% of respondents, choose that educational institutions' support in providing resources for at-home learning was only moderately useful. Sadly, the smallest percentage of the students, 4.2% of respondents, believe that institutions' assistance with their online classes is completely useless. Additionally, 20% of the respondents, which is 23 students, think that institutions' assistance is just slightly helpful. Next, point number 7. Stress level from distance learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the research on student stress from distance learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, 20.9% of the respondents, which is 24 students, found that learning from home during the pandemic was slightly stressful. The largest group of respondents, 34.8%, picked it as very stressful for them, while 11.3% of the respondents, which is 13 students, feel it as extremely stressful. Next, 33 students, which is 28.7% of respondents, choose it as moderately stressful. Meanwhile, only 4.3% of the respondents, who represent 5 students, believe that learning at home during the epidemic is not stressful at all. Next, point number 8. Enjoyness of remote learning. The findings on students' perception of the enjoyment of online learning themselves show that 53% of respondents, which is 61 students, believe that they enjoy the class but prefer to change a few things. 11.2% of respondents find that remote learning is absolutely fun. Meanwhile, the list of the students, 2.6% of respondents feel that it is not fun at all. Some of the respondents, which is 38 students, still think that online learning is quite challenging for them. Point number 9. Teachers help during remote learning. The majority of respondents, 38.3% of respondents, which is 44 students, feel that a teacher's help is very helpful for them during online learning, followed by 36.5% of respondents, which is 42 students, who also find it is moderately helpful when a teacher helps them with their tasks during online learning. Additionally, just 18 students, which is 15.7% of respondents, felt that teacher's assistance is slightly helpful. On the other hand, 10 students, which is 8.7% of respondents, believe that it is extremely helpful. Lastly, point number 10, open-ended question, respondent preference towards remote learning nowadays. Most of the respondents answered that they do not prefer remote learning as it is quite challenging for them, especially for beginners. Also, because of the limitation of knowledge they got compared to face-to-face classes, they found that it is not enjoyable for them to learn online as they are lonely, especially when they can't discuss directly on some tasks when it comes to group work. Some of them find it difficult for them to track their schedule, and they easily lose focus as they only hear their teachers' voices and see their faces. Further, some of the respondents stated that remote learning makes them lazy easily and lack motivation as they did not understand certain points during the online class, and it is hard to discuss things online when they need to work in a group. However, some of the respondents stated they enjoy remote learning as they are introverted individuals who could find it challenging to interact with other students.
Additionally, they favor online education because it is more cost and time efficient than attending standard classrooms. Also, because they can get used to the technology.
In conclusion, there cannot be a doubt that distance learning facilitates the students' task by helping them with study materials, catching up with their classes, by watching the recording of their lectures. However, it is vividly shown that a hands on class is much more effective. Moreover, the results that were displayed showed how the students felt towards distance learning and whether it is a preferable method in attending their classes. The analysis showed that the students are not fully satisfied and prepared for distance learning, as the majority agrees distance learning can be very stressful. Motivation, technology skills, and study skills plays an important role for the students as it is crucial for them to be productive and prepared throughout the whole academic year. That is it for me. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the presentation today, and I would like to summarize a bit by saying that distance learning has its own pros and cons, especially during the COVID 19 pandemic. Some might think that it is the best way to study, but some might not. That is why survey need to be done in order to evaluate everyone's opinion, because everyone's opinion is not the same. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for your attention today, and we appreciate it, and we hope to see you guys very soon again in the future. Thank you so much.